This is the Steiner T5Xi. Alright, let's get it out. Comes in quite a nice box that's difficult to open. Usual stuff there. There's a battery in there and maybe a sticker. We'll hold on to that one. Some foam, a sunshade, and the scope. So it's a 5-25 by 56mm objective. It's a really common sort of setup for a long range rifle scope. It also came with these caps and the throw lever, which I put on before we started this video to save you some time. Is this meant to be Steiner or is it Steiner? You don't know? No, I don't know. Steiner? Is that it? It's really for like a precision rifle, like long range stuff, positional stuff, that sort of gear. It sits higher in a price bracket than sort of many other scopes. Not really an entry level scope, but it certainly would make a nice first scope. This would be one of those scopes you'd buy and you'd keep forever. It would last you a long time, I suspect, and it certainly has the features that you'd need to be very competitive in that field. I guess it's probably Steiner. Speaking of features, now I mentioned before the throw lever. Now this is a removable throw lever, so it doesn't have to stay on the scope if you choose not to use it. It'll allow you to push really quickly between 5 and I guess up to 25, which can be really useful and quick to be able to bump up that magnification for those longer shots. Also the ability to bring it down really quickly as well, in case you encounter something a little bit closer in. Throw levers are certainly becoming common, but the ability to detach them though can be quite useful. Scope also comes with the caps I mentioned before. Alright, that's part of the standard package, which is nice. A lot of other manufacturers will make you pay extra for those. As they go all the way back, they're actually the Tenebrex ones, alright, which are the best kind. They're generally quite flexible and they will take a bit of movement, not as fragile as some of the others around. It's a 34mm tube, as many of these sort of style scopes are. The scope has 26mm of elevation available to in the turret. This turret's a pretty cool turret actually, one of my favourites around. The reason for that is the way that it goes to its second rotation. It's got 12mm of adjustment in one turn, which is pretty impressive to start with. But as you go through and you go past 11, the numbers shift and change around. By the time you get to 12, you're presented with number 12. From there on in, you're presented on the same little windows, but with the next row of numbers. That way it's really easy to know what elevation rotation you're on, because whatever you're looking at equates to how much elevation you've dialed in. You can't get lost on a second or third rotation, and you don't have to look for an indicator either. Purely look what the number is, and that's the number you're on. This one's got illumination around the side here, so there's 11 settings of intensity, and between each click it will turn off as well. That's probably what that battery was for. You get into that one just by twisting it around, and that's where the battery compartment will sit. Now, these turrets aren't locking turrets, so you can grab them and dial them straight away. No need to pull them up or push them in or do anything different like that. Your windage has got a bit of a stop to it as well, where you'll wind around to about 5.5mm. It's actually sitting on about 5.6mm that way, and the same the other way. So it's got a stop, so you can't be a full rotation out on your wind. That will limit how much wind you might be able to dial in compared to some other scopes. But if you're dialing more than 5mm wind and holding, you got a lot of wind going on. The glass in this thing is really impressive actually. We had it out with a number of other scopes, all quite good scopes, and they were all mounted on rifles and laying next to each other, and we were there as the sun went down. So as the light was diminishing, we kept looking through. Every 10 or so minutes we'd check back through and spend a couple of minutes on each scope, back and forth, back and forth. We watched what happens on the edges of colours, where they have that sort of effect where you get a different pigmentation. And also how much you could see, how clear the image was. The Steiner definitely kept up. In fact, it blew away a number of the other opposition. Now that's not a super scientific test. That was 3 of us, and we all came up to a slightly different variation on our opinion across the 5 scopes we were using. But the Steiner was always within the top couple of those. But as far as glass clarity went on our amateur test there, it was impressive to look through all the way through until it was dark. It's not a Christmas tree style reticle, more of like your traditional crosshairs, but with a lot of appropriate hash marks throughout. It is a floating crosshair right in the center. So you've got sort of the little plus symbol and then a gap around the outside and then the rest of the reticle as it carries on. It also has 0.1mm ranging marks further out on each side. and the top as well. The turret's nice and low profile, easy to grab, easy to dial, very responsive, gloves on or gloves off. The knurling is also matched on the parallax as well as the illumination ring. You've even got the same type of feel out the front here as well. Chuck that sunshade on. And you got the same marks there. Now that's obviously so this thing clipping on, but it's great how they've sort of kept that feel throughout the entire scope. I got it. All right, the other end. Now, the eyepiece on this is, I guess, a little unusual. Normally you're only really giving diopters that will either be a quick adjustment, like that, or they'll be locked in some way like the Night Forces, the Leopold. This one sort of takes a step further. This one's a quick adjust, but it also has a locking ring. So you can pull that locking ring back, adjust it to wherever your eye needs it, and then lock that ring in nice and tight. And the quick adjust is no longer a quick adjust. I actually really like that. I like the fact that you could leave it open and people can adjust it if others are using the scopes. But if you need to lock it down for your eye and only your eye, you can lock it tight and it won't be easy to undo. A really good system to be able to sort of include both quite comfortably in there. What I love about it, the elevation turret. As I said, that's one of my favourite and one of the best I think I've seen. The fact that you are never going to get lost in your rotations, the fact that the number you're looking at is always the number that is relevant to whatever you're dialing. You don't have to sort of go, oh, first round 10 and then the next I'm on another 7.5 and that's it, so I'm 17.5. Now they're pretty easy maths, but it's so much simpler when you're under pressure just to look at the number and know that you're on that number. I do like that Windage turret does lock as well, that it goes sort of all the way around, stops and comes back and stops. You can't get out on that. I've seen that too many times. In fact, in this last week I've seen that happen and a guy was 2 rotations out completely. It's just it's frustrating to fix, wastes a bit of ammo doing so. Now, very basic and very amateurish optics comparison against some other scopes of note. It really has been great using it shooting as well. There's always a couple of things I don't like about it, that once you lock this down, you can actually obtain all 26mm. Now let's say I put a canted rail and some rings and stuff, and I got this to the point where I was pretty much towards the bottom of the travel for the 0, to be able to make the most of the 26mm of elevation. So perhaps I had sort of 25 available to me. This turret will only let you go to 23. So I may have another mil of adjustment in there, or 1.5 mil, depending on how well and how accurately I can get that canted, but I can't access it, which is a little frustrating. Now I understand that's done because there's not a third set of numbers on there, but that's slightly disappointing. And also 26mm is certainly good for most situations, but if you're really wanting to push it out significantly further, a little bit more in there would be nice. The other thing that I see slightly limiting is the reticle. Not that it's a bad reticle, don't get me wrong. I like a Christmas tree style reticle, and therefore the reticle in there wouldn't really suit the way I shoot. Steiner, it is a good reticle itself, and hopefully they expand the line with other options in future. But that's our first look at the Steiner T5Xi. It's impressive. I've had this on anything from little 22 up to a 308 so far, and it has performed flawlessly. It's tracked well, optically it's really good, and just in terms of the features and using them, makes a lot of sense. Have you guys got one? We'd love to hear from you about what you have experienced with it, how it's performed for you in the field. Hit us up with any questions about it. We've got it for a little bit longer, so we're going to be able to play with it and get to know it a little bit better as well. Catch you next time.